Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer quick match gameplay. This time around I'm playing as Brettonia against the Dwarves led by Gangle on the map Norden. Um, so knowing that I was going to go up against Dwarves, I assumed I would probably be facing up against some sort of enemy artillery. Um, and knew that I had to deal with their armor, obviously. So this was my first Brettonia versus Dwarf combat, so I wanted to try some things out. Decided to run the Fan Enchantress here. Of course, Chalice of Potions, Earthblood, Regrowth, and dropped the ability that reduces spell damage. Next to her, we do have the Grail Relic, of course, to stiffen up my front line. For my front line, I took a bunch of men-at-arms with shields because dwarves do tend to bring skirmishers. Simply there to basically absorb shots, take damage that would otherwise go to my squires, of which I brought 4, to give me some armor-piercing punch. Unfortunately, their melee attack is fairly low, but with enough quantity, I'm hoping to cut through most dwarven infantry. And for my cavalry contingent, I brought 3 units of questing knights. I got 2 units out here on the flank, 1 unit here, and then a 4th unit, which is Knights of the Realm, for the cycle charge ability. Now, my opponent, who's cooped up back here in the woods, which is definitely a smart move since cavalry doesn't do too well in woods, brought a lot of longbeards with great weapons. His leader is somewhere out in here, Thorgrim. He's backed up by Runesmith. It's a little bit difficult to find stuff here in the woods, but there's a Runesmith and a Thane. Actually, 2 Runesmiths and a Thane. The Runesmith, one of them is only bringing a Rune of Wrath and Ruin, the other one bringing several different runes. Actually, it looks like most of the runes that are available. Thane to stiffen up his front line. One unit of Slayers back there. Bunch of longbeards with great weapons. I do believe there were some dwarf warriors with great weapons, and a handful of quarrelers to give him some ranged firepower. And that's basically it. Knowing that I'd have no real ranged weaponry that could do much damage to him, because peasant bowmen are terrible against armor, he opted for all the great weapons, which is definitely not a bad choice against Brettonia's cav. So without further ado, starting the matchup. I'm pushing the Fan Enchantress forward, just trying to scout a little bit. She is very quick. She should be practically immune to the dwarves. And immediately I'm figuring they didn't bring any artillery. I brought a field trebuchet, mostly just because I had points left over, and it was a toss-up between the foot squires and a field trebuchet, and I decided to give a shot to the field trebuchet, try to hurt my opponent that way. And it'll start opening fire on my opponent very shortly. It had a bit of issues, of course, zeroing in because of my opponent's units were moving in and out of vision in the woods, so it didn't initially move into firing position. Now moving into position over here on the edge of the woods to engage my opponent. This was a bit of a mistake, I think, immediately. I should have probably just stayed back in the open ground, tried to bait my opponent to fight me out where I'd be more capable of engaging him on my own terms. In the meantime, though, I have moved my questing knights back a bit. My knights of the realm have still not been spotted, though they will start pushing forward a little bit through the woods. And my 2 units of questing knights out here on the flank are simply waiting in the woods for the moment as well, unspotted. Now my trebuchet has opened fire, the first handful of shots. Quarrelers already have taken a handful of deaths, so have the longbeards with great weapons, and this is definitely my mistake. I started pushing into my opponent. I really, at this point, should have just simply fallen back, let my trebuchet do some work, force my opponent to make a move. Trebuchet is all up to 10 kills, is doing some work. Stopped my opponent up, forced him to fight me in the open, but I didn't do that, and I foolishly pressed forward here. The Fan Enchantress, of course, I'm hoping will allow me to tank through the dwarven melee damage with her healing. Now, my opponent does shift fire to the foot squires, who have no shields, and their armor isn't amazing, so they're going to take quite a bit of damage and hurt from that. I'm not sure where the trebuchet was firing. At this point, I just kind of told it to fire in this area, because I knew that's where the dwarves were camped out. And I'm taking some damage on the foot squires. Questing knights, I'm distracted by my questing knights, and so these guys are already taking some losses. In the meantime, my knights of the realm are breaking cover, and these questing knights start moving up shortly. And I'm going to try to push into my opponent. I probably should have dropped the regrowth on these foot squires just to keep them healed up, but instead they're going to take a bunch of losses to the quarrelers. My men-at-arms do get tied down by the Thane, who charges out to meet them, and now the fight's kind of degenerating. The longbeards, of course, will do very well against the men-at-arms with shields, but I'm hoping that with the help of the questing knights and the foot squires, I'll be able to bust through. So my opponent has this defensive box going. Unfortunately, I leave the Grail Relic behind for a little bit, and I should have been on top pushing forward. Definitely a bit of a mistake. And once, as you can see, the foot squires are already down over 15 models and dropping very, very quickly to the Quarrelers. In the meantime, my questing knights have pushed into my opponent's flank. I do drop an Earthblood on him, not realizing that the Slayers are here because the trees were getting in my field of vision, and so my questing knights are getting absolutely destroyed. However, they are dishing out some hurt in return. It's definitely not totally one-sided. On the meantime, on the other side, Knights of the Realm have charged in, got a very solid charge. I do drop a Chalice of Potions on these Longbeards, which absolutely demolishes them. And actually, I think it's the Quarrelers, which definitely demolishes them, though. In the meantime, my Knights of the Realm are extricating themselves after making a pretty successful charge here, knocking off about a fifth of the Longbeard's HP. And shortly, there's going to be Questing Knights charging in to kind of circle around, trying to wrap my opponent's flank over here where it's exposed, and just try to damage him that way. In the meantime, though, my Questing Knights are pulling back, trying to escape the Slayers, who are hot in pursuit. Questing Knights want none of that. They're not good against Slayers at all. They have fairly low armor for heavy cav, so the Slayers, even despite they don't have they don't have too much armor piercing, will definitely do a number on these poor guys. Over here, though, it's a bit of a trade back and forth. Unfortunately, the Rune of Wrath and Runes are going down and beating up on my foot squires really bad. I do micro my squires away, or my Questing Knights away, trying to get them clear, and then circle back into my opponent's units. In the meantime, some of my units have broken off, and just like with Orcs, you want to be on top of pulling your units back as Brettonia. Simply being out-attritioned here by the Dwarves, but fortunately the Knights of the Realm are in here. And unfortunately, though, what happened here was that they got pincered, and they got caught between the Longbeards and the other unit of Longbeards back here. The Questing Knights are dishing out quite a bit of hurt. They'll do very well against the Longbeards. Obviously I didn't want to bring Grail Guardians because they don't have armor piercing and they do magic damage neither, which is particularly good against dwarves. Now that I'm going to get these Questing Knights into the charge, I'm trying to micro these Questing Knights, these other units Questing Knights, to stay away from the Slayers, but they do end up getting caught somewhere out there when I wasn't paying enough attention. My Fan Enchantress is taking fire, but that's okay. She's fairly tanky. Not dying too quickly there. Got a rear charge on these Questing Knights, tearing through them pretty quickly, trying to pull these men-at-arms all back into the fight. Over here you see the Longbeards are wavering, some of them are actually broken. And I ordered my men-at-arms to attack them, but unfortunately they're not able to pursue for some reason, and these guys do eventually recover and turn this around on the poor men-at-arms. The Questing Knights in the meantime are kind of tearing through this flank over here, tearing through these Longbeards. The Foot Squires have pushed through as well, so I've won this flank. Unfortunately, I'm no longer paying attention to the Foot Squires, so they're just sitting there doing nothing, and I think they're just taking fire. Over here, Quarrelers are getting torn up by the Knights of the Realm. And over here, I'm popping as much magic as I can, just trying to heal my army. Fire some artillery shots on these guys, trying to pepper them down with the trebuchets. My Grail Relic almost died. I pull it out. And now I'm simply being overwhelmed. I don't really have a target for my Chalice of Potions because all of my opponent's units are really pretty messed up. Somewhere over here, my Questing Knights finally got wrecked by this by the Slayers. And as you can see, the Longbeards are rallying. One of the units did break and flee, but the other units rallied despite wavering, and are now making a comeback and defeating my Questing Knights and men-at-arms shields, which is definitely a bit unfortunate. As you can see, these Foot Squires just sat here taking fire because I wasn't on top microing them. That was another bit of a mistake. Having a much more micro-intensive army than my opponent was definitely being a bit of a killer here. As you can see, though, even though my army is retreating, I'm trying to regroup it around the Grail Relic, kind of make a new line. The battle is still fairly even. I'm not that far behind my opponent, though my cavalry contingent is lost, and I still do have the Field Trebuchet, which I'm hoping to take advantage of. My Enchantress has hit her healing cap. As you can see, the Field Trebuchet hasn't done too much damage because those trees are obstructing my shots. Definitely a bit of a disadvantage. Now my Knights of the Realm are getting caught and slaughtered here. And now they get hit by Rune of Wrath and Ruin. I don't have any more Winds of Magic to heal. Definitely a bit of a problem against dwarves. And so these guys are simply going to get slaughtered almost to man. Trebuchet is still coming in pretty hot and heavy, but not really doing anywhere near the damage I needed to be doing. The terrain is definitely helping my opponent here. And I try to group my units, but unfortunately some were wavering, retreating, and then retreating again. And I wanted to get an Earthblood. I only had enough Winds of Magic for about one more Earthblood, so I was trying to gather all my units around to get an Earthblood off. Realizing that it wasn't going to happen before the dwarves hit me, I popped it a bit prematurely perhaps. I should have maybe pulled it back a bit further. And now I'm trying to pull some of my units back. Knights of the Realm got absolutely slaughtered. They're down really bad. Foot Squires over here, pretty beat up, and unfortunately now you can see the Runes of Wrath and Ruin is going down. Runes of Wrath and Ruin are incredibly powerful against large model count units like that, especially when you don't have and you can see Trebuchet is still pounding away at these Longbeards, but my opponent's simply able to just tank through most of my damage. Now I'm kind of making a do-or-die push here. I do get a surround on my opponent with the help of the Knights and the returning Questing Knights and the returning Men-at-Arms Shields and Foot Squires, but with my opponent's Runes of Wrath and Ruin going down and just annihilating my units, my Questing Knights running out of HP. His morale holding strong because he has all four of his heroes in here. There's simply no way I'm going to be able to recover. One of my trebuchets there probably does more damage to friendly units than to the opponent. Definitely a bit of an issue once again. Longbeards are getting torn up by the questing knights, but the questing knights are significantly more expensive units, so that is a bit of a given. And it's not efficient enough to give me the win here. And as you can see, Fanchantress is already long hitter healing cap. She's falling apart. She's getting torn apart by the Stain. Grail Relic is almost dead. This unit of Longbeards is wavering and breaks, but it's not enough. It's nowhere near enough. These three lords are all still very high on HP. I don't have any more units really to deal with them. I'm simply being overwhelmed at this point. And as you can see, Fanchantress is almost dead. At this point, I'm very desperately just trying to perhaps cause a fear out and trying to whittle these guys down, but it's just not happening, and the dwarves are having none of it, and as you can see, my army just falls apart and shatters. Bit of a close match. I definitely think there were some mistakes I made against dwarves. First and foremost, we're going to look at the after battle stats real quick. First and foremost, I allowed the dwarves to, and my opponent's slayers were coming back, which is something I forgot to mention, but they were coming back at the end of that match from chasing those questing knights. So, first and foremost, I engaged the dwarves where it suited them on the edge of the woods, rather than forcing them to come to me out in the open, where the trebuchet could have done a bit more work. Second of all, the trebuchet was a bit of an incorrect choice, I think. I would have been better off bringing another extra unit of foot squires. I wasn't quite on top of my micro with the Grail Relic, and I wasn't that good about setting my opponent up for good Chalice of Potions with the pincers, with my pincer movements with the cavalry, because that meant there was going to be friendly fire, so I was always trying to look for good targets for the Chalice, and it just wasn't happening. My cavalry got a lot done. The Knights of the Realm, the Questing Knights, of course, this unit got caught by the Slayers, I do believe. Or maybe it was one of these units got caught by the Slayers. But the Questing Knights did shed a lot of hurt against the Dwarves, so the Knights of the Realm, but not enough to be cost efficient. And unfortunately, the foot squires just got torn up by ranged fire for most part, and just couldn't do very much against the dwarven infantry, who is a little better than them, especially with all the buffs coming in and the attacks from the runesmiths and the thane and all that. And as you can see, a lot of my opponent's sturdiness and the places where my opponent really won out ended up being in the lords. His lords carried it very hard, where my men-at-arms just didn't dish out any hurt, or not, and nowhere near enough. And neither did my field trebuchets. So those were definitely some big mistakes there. Very good game to my opponent. Well played. Good use of the terrain. It was good. It was good. It was a close loss, and definitely I learned some lessons there. I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, do feel free to leave a like or subscribe down below. If you have any suggestions, recommendations, any builds you'd like to see, do feel free to share those down in the comments. I'll be sure to read them as soon as I can. I do appreciate you all for watching, and Wyvern out.